Go ahead and subscribe to this channel and enjoy the video, because what you are going to hear is not just a video but a real history story. Let's talk about why life as a medieval assassin was just awful, so awful, in fact, that you might find yourself drifting comfortably toward sleep as we wander deeper into the shadowy alleyways of the Middle Ages. Picture the cramped, cobblestone streets after sunset. The market stalls are shuttered, the taverns are leaking torch smoke into a night sky the color of ink, and somewhere nearby a bell is tolling the hour. In that heavy gloom, an assassin stands pressed against a wall slick with rain, waiting. Cold water trickles down through a hood that was never truly waterproof, soaking rough wool and chilling skin to the bone. You can almost feel that slow, miserable seeping, can't you? And already the first whisper of a hook tugs at your curiosity, because everybody loves a secret, yet every secret has a cost, and in medieval Europe the cost of silence could be as high as a life. Our nameless killer, let's call him the Shadow for convenience, wasn't some glamorous, hood-flipping hero from a modern video game. No, the Shadow was usually a hungry, underpaid hireling who had grown up in an overcrowded alley where plague carts rattled by more often than bread wagons. He probably smelled of smoke, garlic, and damp straw. His boots, cracked and thin, let mud slurp up between his toes whenever he moved. And that dagger? Forget shiny steel, think pitted iron, sharpened against a broken millstone because true whetstones cost money and money was always scarce. Day after endless day, the Shadow wondered if tonight's coin would be enough to buy a hunk of stale brown bread, maybe a handful of onions, perhaps even a strip of salted pork, luxuries measured in copper pennies. But beyond hunger lurked fear, constant and relentless. Imagine creeping along rooftops slick with moss, a misstep away from a 5-story plunge into a cesspit. Below, watchmen shuffled by with lanterns, their dogs snarling at every whisper. If the Shadow slipped, there were no padded haystacks, only clay tiles that shattered, a scream he couldn't swallow in time, and then the hard ground rushing up. Even getting caught was grisly. City guards fancied public justice. They'd chain a captured assassin to a wooden frame in the square and invite every curious eye to watch the slow confession bleed out. No pleasant fade to black, no hidden retry button, just pain, splinters, and shame while merchants haggled over cabbages nearby. Still awake? Let's sprinkle in a richer hook. What secret mission could possibly lure someone into such misery? Sometimes it was a noble feud. One baron hired the Shadow to snuff a rival before dawn. Other times a merchant prince wanted a shipping competitor to vanish, or a bishop whispered instructions no one could hear over the choir. These offers dangled silver coins in the air like glimmering fireflies. The Shadow's eyes would widen, stomach growling, mind racing with visions of a hot meal, a warm blanket, maybe even a night without rats. Yet every silver coin shone with a double edge, because a client who could afford an assassin could also afford to silence him afterward, permanently. Now slide deeper into your blankets as we wind through another smoky tavern door. Inside, the crowd smells of sweat, ale, and spilled pottage. The Shadow slips onto a rickety bench and receives a coated nod from a hooded contact. Little does our assassin know the ale jug has been laced with poppy syrup. Within moments eyelids sag, the room blurs, and the contact is quietly rifling through pockets for proof of the kill. Treachery sat at every table, humming like an invisible choir. If you were thinking about applying for this position, consider the employee benefits: no health plan, no sick leave, and no retirement, unless you count a shallow grave outside the city walls. Of course, training for this grim career was equally harsh. Picture a dirt courtyard behind an abandoned monastery. Here, a veteran cutthroat drills recruits through endless lunges with dull blades to toughen skin. Hours stretch into days, palms blister, knees bruise, muscles scream. Water is scarce, meals scarcer. Those who collapse stay collapsed, washed out of the program by sheer exhaustion. The survivors learn to climb ropes smeared with pig fat, to pick rusty locks by candlelight, to memorize back alley routes that twist like serpents between butcher shops and plague pits. Every lesson hums with danger, every stumble earns a cuff across the head. And let's linger on plague pits for a moment, shall we? Imagine stalking a target through a city when black-robed doctors are shouting about miasma and bleeding patients with dirty knives. Fleas hop onto the assassin's cloak, carrying fever and swollen lymph nodes as unwelcome souvenirs. An infected assassin might still complete the job, coughing into a sleeve, vision swimming, because failure meant client retaliation. And when the fever finally claimed him, he'd be tipped into yet another mass grave, just another nameless body under quicklime, forgotten within a week. There's your glamorous secret life. Feeling sleepy yet? Glowing star quick midnight whisper. If you're finding yourself curiously lulled by these shadow-soaked tales, tap that subscribe now so you never miss another hidden corner of history. One gentle click keeps the stories flowing and gives you first access whenever a fresh, high CPM secret surfaces. You deserve the inside scoop, after all. Glowing star. Back in the gray pre-dawn, the shadow scales a crumbling city wall. Fingers numb, he claws over jagged stones slick with morning dew. Even breathing too loudly could spark disaster. Sentries on parapets carried crossbows primed with bolts fletched in goose feather, and they were paid bonuses for every intruder they skewered. Below, narrow streets twist like veins, echoing with the bark of mongrel dogs and the clatter of shop shutters. Every rooftop tile threatens to rattle loose, every chimney belches smoke that stings the eyes, and the assassin's heart thuds in unnatural rhythm, half from fear, half from the thought of that tiny purse of coins awaiting him at the safe house. Safe houses, though, were rarely safe. Often they were abandoned grain lofts crawling with mice. The straw reeked of mildew, the boards groaned with every footstep. Worse yet, landlords in poor quarters knew the scent of stolen money. They'd set informants outside, waiting for a glimpse of a cloaked figure slipping in. The moment the shadow stepped out after a night's rest, he risked betrayal. Informants sold names to constables, constables sold bodies to the gallows, and the gallows sold fear to the gawking crowd. A tidy chain of commerce that never slept. Back in the gray pre-dawn, the shadow scales a crumbling city wall. Fingers numb, he claws over jagged stones slick with morning dew. Even breathing too loudly could spark disaster. Sentries on parapets carried crossbows primed with bolts fletched in goose feather, and they were paid bonuses for every intruder they skewered. Below, narrow streets twist like veins, echoing with the bark of mongrel dogs and the clatter of shop shutters. Every rooftop tile threatens to rattle loose, Every chimney belches smoke that stings the eyes, and the assassin's heart thuds in unnatural rhythm, half from fear, half from the thought of that tiny purse of coins awaiting him at the safe house. Safe houses, though, were rarely safe. Often they were abandoned grain lofts crawling with mice. The straw reeked of mildew, the boards groaned with every footstep. Worse yet, landlords in poor quarters knew the scent of stolen money. They'd set informants outside, waiting for a glimpse of a cloaked figure slipping in. The moment the shadow stepped out after a night's rest, he risked betrayal. Informants sold names to constables, constables sold bodies to the gallows, and the gallows sold fear to the gawking crowd. A tidy chain of commerce that never slept. Let's add another hook to keep your eyelids heavy but your interest alive: the tools of the trade. Hollywood loves glittering daggers and spring-loaded wrist blades, yet reality offered nothing so precise. Most assassins relied on kitchen knives, garrots made from horsehair, or stout cudgels for blunt work. Poison existed: arsenic, hemlock, deadly nightshade, but it was expensive and unpredictable. Many poisons tasted foul, changing the victim's wine color or leaving residue on the goblet's rim. A sloppy dose could even alert the target, turning hunter into hunted. Worse, some clients demanded proof of deed: a ring, a tuft of hair, perhaps an ear. Imagine rummaging through a purse, trying not to grimace while clutching a freshly severed ear wrapped in cloth. The smell alone could haunt dreams for weeks. Still, the greater torment was moral, though few spoke of it out loud. Night after night, the shadow replayed faces of those he'd silenced: the baker who supplied loaves to orphans, the scribe who tutored street children, the young guard who whispered a prayer before falling. Each life weighed on the assassin's conscience like an iron shackle. To dull the ache, many turned to drink, to opium, or to superstition. They carried talismans carved from bone, uttered frantic prayers to obscure saints, or left coins at shrines in hopes of forgiveness. Yet in the hush before sunrise, remorse still seeped in like ground fog, chilling as any winter draft. Now imagine you're listening to this story by candlelight, and the flame gutters low. The wick smolders, smoke spirals, and shadows dance across stone walls. Outside, the city bells mark another hour, but for the assassin those hours blur together, stitched by fatigue and fear into one long, fraying thread. Could he ever escape? There were rumors, always rumors, of a final job so richly paid that retirement in some distant seaside town was possible. But every assassin you meet will claim he's just one job away from freedom. In truth, the last job is usually the one that ends him, either in failure or in betrayal by the very patron who dangled the gold. Even lodging in that seaside town wouldn't erase the old nightmares. Assassins carried too many ghosts in their minds, and ghosts have a habit of whispering when the surf is quietest. Perhaps that's why so few retired shadows left behind any written memoirs: ink freezes beneath a weight of guilt. Meanwhile, reputable chroniclers avoided interviewing known killers for fear of losing their own heads. Our knowledge comes piecemeal, from court records, guild edicts, and the occasional sensational rumor penned by a monk who heard confessions on a windy night. And so the assassin's reality stayed blurred, like candle smoke, perfect for bedtime contemplation. Let's drift over to the wider political theater. Medieval Europe was a chessboard of dukes, counts, and bishops locked in grudges that spanned generations. Hiring an assassin seemed cheaper than raising a private army, yet it rarely solved anything. A stabbed noble left behind heirs thirsting for vengeance. Tit-for-tat killings escalated until whole towns went up in flames. For the assassin, this meant steady employment, but also a swelling roster of enemies. Picture fleeing one city under cover of darkness, only to discover your reputation precedes you. Tavern doors slam shut, ferrymen refuse passage, and innkeepers cross themselves when you request a room. Isolation became a second skin, rubbing raw against the first. Hygiene, too, was a daily misery. A shadow rarely risked the crowded public bathhouses. They were perfect traps for ambushes or arrest. Instead, he wiped grime off with damp rags, doused himself in cheap vinegar to mask odor, and prayed no rat fleas scuttled under his cloak. In winter, icy rain stiffened leather belts until they cracked. In summer, lice burrowed into seams. Sleep happened in snatches, a fitful hour atop church rafters, another behind grain sacks, always one eye open, dagger near. By now your mind might be floating, half engaged, half yawning, as the gentle monotony of hardship rolls on. That, dear listener, is precisely why this tale holds value for your deep sleep playlist, the steady cadence of historical woes, the rhythmic listing of sorrows, the repetition of whispers about fear, hunger, and betrayal. Each detail nudges you closer to that dreamy edge while also sprinkling enough curious hooks. What if the shadow escapes? What secret client will appear next, to keep your attention just tethered? This delicate dance between boredom and intrigue is the secret spice of high CPM bedtime history. So, lean back. Feel your muscles loosen as the imaginary fog cools your cheeks. Listen as leather boots scuff along a moonlit cloister. Hear the distant clink of coins into a wooden box. Feel the hush settle, thick and muffling, like snowfall over rooftops. Somewhere, a lone owl hoots, and the assassin freezes, hand on blade, heart hammering. You, however, can simply exhale, letting tension melt from shoulders. For in your safe bed, the greatest danger is missing out on tomorrow night's story. And that, of course, can be remedied with one last quiet click on subscribe before your eyelids finally glide shut. Yet the night lingers, and our shadow story drifts onward like mist curling around crooked chimneys, inviting you to sink ever deeper into the pillow while a faint ember of curiosity stays lit, glowing just enough to guide your thoughts through the next slow stretch of medieval misery. Imagine another assignment arriving not by whispered word in a tavern but by a tiny scrap of parchment slipped beneath a rat-gnawed door. The charcoal marks are smudged, the handwriting crooked, almost impatient. Only an address, the apothecary's cellar, 1 hour after moonrise. No name, no signature, just that single line daring the shadow to trust the unknown. Does he refuse and risk losing a week's bread money? Or accept and step into a maze of possibilities where every corridor might be a dead end? The hook tugs again, because in a world starved of certainty, each decision becomes a coin toss with blades on both sides. Yet the night lingers, and our shadow story drifts onward like mist curling around crooked chimneys, inviting you to sink ever deeper into the pillow while a faint ember of curiosity stays lit, glowing just enough to guide your thoughts through the next slow stretch of medieval misery. Imagine another assignment arriving not by whispered word in a tavern but by a tiny scrap of parchment slipped beneath a rat-gnawed door. The charcoal marks are smudged, the handwriting crooked, almost impatient. Only an address, the apothecary's cellar, 1 hour after moonrise. No name, no signature, just that single line daring the shadow to trust the unknown. Does he refuse and risk losing a week's bread money? Or accept and step into a maze of possibilities where every corridor might be a dead end? The hook tugs again, because in a world starved of certainty, each decision becomes a coin toss with blades on both sides. Picture the apothecary's shop that evening, shelves stacked with dusty glass vials, corks stained by herbs and oils, a faint sweet bitter scent of fennel masking something rancid beneath. Candle stubs gutter, their wax spilling onto cracked oak counters. Beneath the floorboards lies the cellar, steep wooden stairs, one of them missing a rung, descending into darkness that smells of mold and damp hemp sacks. Our assassin's boots creak softly, each creak echoes like a heartbeat. Down there waits the client, face hidden by hood, flanked by 2 rusted cages filled with agitated crows. Their wings flap, feathers rasp against iron bars, and the sound feels oddly like pages of a forbidden book turning themselves in the dark. Without a greeting, the hooded figure slides a leather pouch across a barrel top. Clink. The unmistakable weight of silver. But here's the catch. Before the shadow can count the coins, the figure speaks. The payment is only in advance. The rest will arrive, after the apothecary himself lies cold on those very barrels, blamed for dabbling in poisons he never sold. The assassin's stomach knots. Eliminating a rival noble feels impersonal, taking the life of a simple tradesman? That sinks deeper beneath the ribs, twisting there slowly. Yet hunger bullies conscience. He nods once. The client disappears up the stairs as quietly as spilled sand, leaving behind the cause of crows and a promise heavier than any chain. Above ground, rain drums the shutters. A night watch bell clangs. Somewhere in the distance a dog howls, its voice thin and lonely, like yours might be if you're still half awake at this hour, half curious, half prepared to drift off while the rain inside your imagination patters in steady, hypnotic rhythm. Before dawn breaks, the deed is done with a quick jerk of garrote and a muted gasp. No dramatic duel, no elegant speech, just a quiet snap in the darkness, followed by the soft thud of a body folding into grain sacks. Yet what follows is even worse. The shadow must forge evidence. Empty vials tip over, powdered belladonna sprinkled on a mortar, a ledger torn to frame guilt. The cellar becomes a stage set for lies, and our assassin the lone stagehand arranging props nobody will applaud. When he finally steps back onto the street, silver clinks in his pocket, but thunder rolls overhead, and with every rumble he wonders if it's the sky judging him, or something beneath his own ribs. Now let that thunder roll softly in your ears, its distant growl a lullaby of guilt, as we turn toward health, or the lack of it. Medieval assassins rarely saw gray hair. Even if they dodged swords and scaffolds, their diets did them no favors. Most mornings meant hard black bread dipped in watered wine. Fresh fruit? An impossible luxury. Meat? Only if someone else paid. Scurvy loosened teeth, rickets twisted bones, night blindness made lanternlight blur, a nightmare for someone expected to thread narrow ledges at midnight. Elixirs sold by street healers advertised miracles, but inside the vials lurked vinegar and ash. Imagine climbing a wall when every joint aches, knuckles swollen like walnuts, and you still force fingers between stones because failure means starvation. That slow, grinding pain makes the eyelids droop, doesn't it? Each small ache layered on the next until the body itself becomes a heavy woolen cloak, soaked in rain, impossible to shrug off. Let another hook flicker to keep the mind afloat, the network. Assassins rarely operated fully alone. There were brokers, secretive middlemen called raveners, because they fed on carrion from every feud. A ravener might run a wine shop by day, but after curfew he memorized names, grudges, and debts. For a price he matched clients to killers, killers to hiding places to bribable officials. But raveners were as loyal as ice on a spring roof, liable to melt the moment a hotter coin appeared. One careless boast by our shadow, one overlong glance at the ravener's coin box, and suddenly a rival assassin knows his favorite rooftop path, his chosen safe house, even the name of the stable boy who sharpens his knives. In a city where everyone hustles for scraps, secrets were traded like salt, precious, granular, and prone to spilling. Consider also the disguises. Popular legend romanticizes velvet masks and crimson cloaks, but anonymity was usually simpler: a greasy hood, a patched monk's robe, a dented merchant's hat. The trick wasn't flamboyance, it was looking too boring to notice. Some assassins blackened teeth to mimic plague rot so guards kept distance. Others smeared charcoal on cheeks to shadow the jawline, then rinsed in horse trough water to erase it after the job. The odor from that trough clings in your nostrils, thick with dung and sour hay, enough to make any witness step back and recall nothing. Picture our shadow trudging along a riverside track at dawn, still wearing that stink-like armor, head bowed, shoulders hunched, a figure among many, quickly forgotten. And as you picture him, your own breathing might slow, matching his exhausted exhale, guiding you toward deeper calm. Yet forgetfulness was never guaranteed. Some marks fought back. Imagine a target, a minor noblewoman rumored to dabble in dangerous politics, who senses danger and sets a decoy. The assassin slips through an unlatched window only to find a straw dummy draped in silks, a bell tied to its wrist, ringing the moment the dagger punctures cloth. Guards rush in. A crossbow quarrel whistles past his ear, splintering lattice and glass. He dives out another window, crashes onto a pigsty roof, rolling through filth as hooves skitter and squeal. Clambering to his feet, he sprints along muddy lanes, chased by lantern light weaving like fireflies. By the time he squeezes into a drainage tunnel, lungs burning, letters of blood are smeared across his sleeve. Nights like this end in tremors that last until sunrise, then continue through the day like hidden aftershocks. Perhaps you feel a faint echo, your pulse thrumming slowly, then subsiding as safety returns and sleep looms. Yet forgetfulness was never guaranteed. Some marks fought back. Imagine a target, a minor noblewoman rumored to dabble in dangerous politics, who senses danger and sets a decoy. The assassin slips through an unlatched window only to find a straw dummy draped in silks, a bell tied to its wrist, ringing the moment the dagger punctures cloth. Guards rush in. A crossbow quarrel whistles past his ear, splintering lattice and glass. He dives out another window, crashes onto a pigsty roof, rolling through filth as hooves skitter and squeal. Clambering to his feet, he sprints along muddy lanes, chased by lantern light weaving like fireflies. By the time he squeezes into a drainage tunnel, lungs burning, letters of blood are smeared across his sleeve. Nights like this end in tremors that last until sunrise, then continue through the day like hidden aftershocks. Perhaps you feel a faint echo, your pulse thrumming slowly, then subsiding as safety returns and sleep looms. Money, of course, remained a constant lure. A single flawless commission might equal a year's honest wage. But collecting it posed hazards. Payment could occur in cryptic locations, a candle maker's attic at noon, the crypt beneath a disused chapel, the baggage cart of a passing troop of mummers. Sometimes the client never arrived, leaving a sealed chest and a puzzle lock instead. Open it wrong and dye-pack powders or noxious fumes stain skin green or purple, branding the thief for all to see. Clients reasoned that a marked assassin was easier to blackmail. Our shadow learned to hold his breath, to test hinges, to listen for hollow spaces under the lid. Even so, the moment the lock clicks open, there's always that breathless second. Will it be silver? Or will it be a trap within a trap? That suspense keeps the mind alert, just long enough, ironically, to lull it afterward into a pleasant drop toward drowsiness once the danger slips away. Let's wander from cities to the countryside. Sometimes a contract required stalking through forests, where moonbeams barely pierced branch-thick canopies. Pine needles muffled footsteps, lovely for stealth, terrible for orientation. Medieval maps were vague, paths snaked and forked, and wolves tracked the scent of a lone traveler. An assassin carried no bright torch, firelight would betray him. Instead, he memorized constellations, but clouds often rolled in, smothering every star. Hours passed as one slow blur of black shapes, trunks, rocks, ditches, all identical. One misjudged step and he'd plunge into a ravine or tangle in bramble that tore flesh like claws. Meanwhile, biting insects sang their faint lullaby. Imagine that repetitive hum in the trees, soothing and monotonous. You might feel eyelids drooping again, lulled by the same forest drones that once tortured our weary killer. Yet forest work paid well because rural lords were paranoid. Their keeps rose lonely on stone outcrops, surrounded by wooden palisades and shallow moats. Getting inside required cunning. Merchants' wagons were searched, traveling bards vetted, even holy pilgrims questioned. Our assassin might disguise himself as a pestilent shepherd, claiming kin buried in the castle chapel, or as a stonemason chasing work. Once inside, he'd memorize guard rotations, eavesdrop on servant gossip, bribe an undercook with a braided loaf, then strike during a feast when laughter echoed in rafters and flutes trilled. Slip behind a tapestry, slit a throat, vanish into corridors smelling of roast venison. But escaping afterward? Picture sprinting across a moonlit bailey, torch-bearers yelling, hounds unleashed, arrows hissing overhead. He vaults a cart, rolls under a stable gate, splashes through a trough, darts northeast toward tree line while hooves thunder behind. Breath rips his lungs raw. Yet somehow the forest swallows him again. And as he stumbles through dew-damp ferns, adrenaline ebbs, replaced by bone-deep weariness, much like the heaviness settling in your body right now. Superstition wove through every deed. Many assassins carried little lead saints, splinters of supposed true cross, or knotted cords counted in silent prayers. Before risky jobs they drew protective circles in chalk, muttering charms they barely understood. One legend claimed that smearing a dagger with an owl's heart ensured a silent kill. Another insisted that burying a frog wrapped in the victim's name beneath a threshold cursed their footsteps, making them easy to track. Such rituals offered illusion of control when control was scarce. Whether miracles occurred, who can say? But belief itself cocooned the mind, offering a thin blanket against panic. Similarly, as you lie there listening, maybe the steady rhythm of these words spins its own small charm, warding off restless thoughts and nudging you into calm. Yet in time, every shadow's luck frayed. Let's peer decades ahead. Our assassin, older now, shoulders stiff, fingers arthritic, still climbs rooftops but slower. On one winter night he slips. Slate tiles crack, boots skid, and he tumbles, managing to catch a rain gutter with raw fingertips. The metal tears skin, warm blood slicks the iron. Muscles tremble. He dangles above a black courtyard while snowflakes drift like feathers. In that dangling moment, he contemplates how many final jobs he already survived, how many ghosts wait below. But a spike of resolve, born not of hope, only habit, urges a last heave. He hauls himself back, breath steaming, collapse silenced by snowfall. Somehow he escapes again, but at dawn, as crimson spills over rooftops, he coughs and tastes copper. A cracked rib perhaps. Or plague. Or guilt. From then on each contract feels heavier. Clients notice hesitation and offer smaller fees. Raveners mutter that the shadow's edge is dull. Younger killers enter the scene, lean, eager, fearless. One night, while our weary veteran nurses a bruised knee beside a sewer grating, he hears footsteps too light for watchmen. A shape leaps, steel glints. He rolls aside just in time, but the message is clear: retire or be removed. Retirement, though, demands coin. And coin demands work. An endless loop. Sleep becomes fitful, haunted by phantom blades. In dreams he hears those crows flapping again. Perhaps you too hear faint wing beats in the distance of your imagination, soft and regular, like the beating of your own heart as it slows toward slumber. Let them carry you across this next little stretch while we visit the legal side of things. Contrary to myth, medieval law codes did address assassination. Many cities passed ordinances promising hefty rewards for informants. Posters depicting crude drawings of suspects adorned market gates, though artistic talent was so poor a stick figure might condemn anyone with a hat. Courts favored spectacle. Condemned assassins were dragged on sledges through streets, entrails burned before still living eyes, bodies quartered to be hung at crossroads as warnings. The smell alone turned stomachs, but to a sleepy mind it's merely distant fog rolling over unseen gallows, another muffled memory drifting by. From then on each contract feels heavier. Clients notice hesitation and offer smaller fees. Raveners mutter that the shadow's edge is dull. Younger killers enter the scene, lean, eager, fearless. One night, while our weary veteran nurses a bruised knee beside a sewer grating, he hears footsteps too light for watchmen. A shape leaps, steel glints. He rolls aside just in time, but the message is clear: retire or be removed. Retirement, though, demands coin. And coin demands work. An endless loop. Sleep becomes fitful, haunted by phantom blades. In dreams he hears those crows flapping again. Perhaps you too hear faint wing beats in the distance of your imagination, soft and regular, like the beating of your own heart as it slows toward slumber. Let them carry you across this next little stretch while we visit the legal side of things. Contrary to myth, medieval law codes did address assassination. Many cities passed ordinances promising hefty rewards for informants. Posters depicting crude drawings of suspects adorned market gates, though artistic talent was so poor a stick figure might condemn anyone with a hat. Courts favored spectacle. Condemned assassins were dragged on sledges through streets, entrails burned before still-living eyes, bodies quartered to be hung at crossroads as warnings. The smell alone turned stomachs, but to a sleepy mind it's merely distant fog rolling over unseen gallows, another muffled memory drifting by. Punishments for failed noble killers could be twisted further. Some lords branded an assassin's face with a hot iron shaped like a serpent, mark of betrayal. Others lopped ears or sliced nostrils so the criminal's shame was visible. Imagine walking into any town square after such branding. Children point, dogs bark, merchants spit. No disguise covers those scars. A life of shadows becomes exposure under unforgiving sun. Whispers follow like buzzing flies. You can almost hear them, persistent but dull, a background hiss coaxing you to rest. Still, there were stories, rare, extraordinary, of assassins turning spies for foreign courts, leveraging skills for queens or emirs who paid in gold florins thick as thumbnails. They became double agents, trading secrets, passing forged letters across borders. But that glamour came with bigger stakes. Betray one crown and another hunts you, betray both and no border protects you. Each day begins with a counterfeit smile and ends with a dagger under the pillow, if a pillow is even afforded. Not exactly the restful retirement you'd hoped, is it? Speaking of daggers beneath pillows, let's pause on personal paranoia. To survive, an assassin cultivated small rituals: never sleep twice in the same loft, never sit with back to a door, never drink wine poured by a stranger. Picture the shadow stepping into a roadside inn, low beams, peat smoke, flicker of rushlights. He chooses a bench against the wall, studies every patron's boots for mud type, city clay versus farm loam, gauging origins. He notes who talks, who listens. He taps tankard thrice before sipping, sniffing for bitter almond. Even after all precautions, a tremor remains, coiling like a tightened spring beneath the sternum. Eventually he beds down in the stable, straw rustling, horse breath warm nearby. But sleep steals in fitful spurts between jabs of fear. Over months, the body learns to catnap, light, fragile, ready to snap awake at footfalls. Yet tonight, here in your bed, you can surrender that vigilance, letting lids fall fully closed while someone else keeps watch in the tale. And what of love? Few dared share a heart with someone who walked the blade's edge nightly. On occasion our shadow found companionship with a laundress who mended his torn cloak. For a season they shared crusts, laughs, and the rare warmth of a borrowed feather mattress. But secrets create fractures. She noticed odd bruises, coins that changed shape from one purse to another, the faint metallic smell that clung to his hands. One evening she asked questions a heartbeat too pointed, and fear sparked inside him like flint. He left before sunrise without farewell. Later he learned local authorities questioned her. To save herself, she spoke his alias. Perhaps betrayal, perhaps survival. Either way, trust splintered, leaving the shadow lonelier than before, a loneliness echoed by the quiet hush filling your room, still and dim, coaxing your own breath slower. Time trickles onward. Seasons will pass, muddy springs, stifling summers, soot-gray autumns, bone-numbing winters. The shadow's legend morphs into rumor. Children chant cautionary rhymes of a hooded man who steals bad dreams but also good hearts. Names blur, facts erode. Somewhere in an abbey library, a monk copies gossip onto parchment margins, one more faint footnote. Centuries later, you and I sift these fragments, piecing together a life that was anything but glamorous: hunger, fear, betrayal, cold stone, and ceaseless running. The monotony of hardship wraps around the story like layers of old linen, comfortable, weighty, perfect for pressing you gently downward toward deeper rest. Picture dawn rising over the assassin's final city. The rooftops shimmer with frost, chimneys puff thin smoke, church bells toll prime. Our shadow, now gray at the temples, peers from a garret window onto a street awakening. He's holding a rare luxury, hot broth in a chipped bowl, warming arthritic knuckles. He contemplates one last contract, a sum large enough to disappear to a coastal village where gulls cry and salt wind erases memories. Yet he knows deep down the pattern will repeat: another client, another enemy, another throat, until a blade finally seeks him in return. And in that quiet moment, he closes his eyes and imagines simply walking away, melting into a crowd as just another tired pilgrim. The possibility flutters like a candle flame, and gutters. Did he ever take that last job? History shrugs. Records fade, bones crumble, and even legends blur. But maybe, just maybe, on a cold evening he slipped aboard a creaking cargo barge, exchanged a pouch of tarnished silver for passage, and watched city spires sink below the river mist while his heartbeat at last found an unhurried tempo. Perhaps he lived out his remaining days tending nets, greeting dawn with calloused hands that smelled of salt, letting gull cries drown the old ghosts. Or perhaps that hope is nothing but another hook, dangling in front of your drifting thoughts to keep them swaying gently as sleep finally claims you. And if you're still faintly awake at the edge, feel free to let the shadows grow quiet now. The alleyway's empty, the ravener's ledger closes, the crows fold wings. Night settles like velvet, deep and soundless. Tomorrow new tales await, but for now, breathe slow, settle in, and let the unloved hush of medieval assassins carry you surely into soft oblivion. Did he ever take that last job? History shrugs. Records fade, bones crumble, and even legends blur. But maybe, just maybe, on a cold evening he slipped aboard a creaking cargo barge, exchanged a pouch of tarnished silver for passage, and watched city spires sink below the river mist while his heartbeat at last found an unhurried tempo. Perhaps he lived out his remaining days tending nets, greeting dawn with calloused hands that smelled of salt, letting gull cries drown the old ghosts. Or perhaps that hope is nothing but another hook, dangling in front of your drifting thoughts to keep them swaying gently as sleep finally claims you. And if you're still faintly awake at the edge, feel free to let the shadows grow quiet now. The alleyway's empty, the ravener's ledger closes, the crows fold wings. Night settles like velvet, deep and soundless. Tomorrow new tales await, but for now, breathe slow, settle in, and let the unloved hush of medieval assassins carry you surely into soft oblivion. Somewhere beyond that imagined seaside, waves hush against a shingle beach, and an elderly fisherman bends to mend a frayed net, his fingers trembling in the pale light. You wonder, just for an instant, if those trembling hands once guided a dagger's hilt. It's a tempting thread to pull, isn't it? But the sea keeps secrets better than any alleyway, and the wind off the water erases footprints as swiftly as the tide smooths the sand. Still, picture the old man pausing, glancing over his shoulder whenever hoofbeats echo on the coastal road, as though ancient debts might ride the horizon. The habit of vigilance never truly dies, it merely softens into quiet glances, little pauses in conversation, subtle checks behind every doorframe. Even at the world's edge, a former assassin measures life in exits and blind spots, but the rhythm of rolling surf slowly overpowers that drum of caution, lulling heartbeats into a gentler cadence, much like you're settling now beneath blankets. While our nameless shadow fades into seaside dusk, let's meander back inland to explore the curious economy that thrived around fear. Entire guilds formed, not of killers, but of candle makers, locksmiths, and stitchers, who specialized in serving those very killers. Candle wicks were braided with saltpeter to burn smokeless, perfect for late-night tasks. Lockpicks were forged slim as sewing needles, hidden inside hollowed bone hairpins. Seamstresses sewed secret pockets into doublets, clever little slits for poison phials no larger than a thumb. Each artisan knew exactly what they crafted, but they asked no questions. Silver slid across counters, and mouths stayed shut. Imagine strolling through a bustling market square at noon, bright stalls, hawkers calling, children chasing geese, yet tucked behind one striped awning is a discreet table where a wrinkled woman threads a cord through soft leather. She never looks up, never greets customers by name. Those who know simply leave payment in a wooden bowl and retrieve parcels wrapped in brown waxed cloth. Commerce thrives in silence, and silence has its own price list. All the while, town criers rang handbells and barked official proclamations about keeping the peace, though everyone understood peace was a tapestry woven from both law and threat. City councils hired peace bond keepers, semi-official roughnecks paid to break noses before grudges escalated to murder. A strange irony, assassins lurked in the shadows, yet municipal budgets quietly included wages for thugs meant to suppress them. One year the ledger might show payments for cobblestone repairs and bridge tolls, the next, an entry coyly labeled retainers for night deputies. In truth, those deputies often held more in common with the killers they chased than with the aldermen they served. After all, both professions demanded silence, speed, and willingness to dirty one's hands before dawn. Consider, too, the spiritual angle. Medieval Europe trembled with relic worship, vials of saints' blood, splinters from apostles' staffs, feathers allegedly shed by archangels. Pilgrims trudged miles to touch reliquaries believed to cure gout or mend broken vows. Assassins, despite their profession, were not immune to superstition. Some paid hefty alms to monasteries in hopes monks would chant nightly masses for their souls. Others commissioned tiny lead crosses and wore them next to skin, convinced the weight offered protection from retribution. One infamous legend tells of an assassin who paid a cathedral mason to carve a hidden gargoyle high among the roof spires, its grimace an exact likeness of the killer himself. He believed that if ever the city sought his execution, divine confusion might cause angels to mistake the stone effigy for the real sinner. Whether angels could be fooled is debatable, but the gargoyle still juts from weathered limestone today, lips frozen in permanent sneer, rainwater dribbling from its chin each stormy night. Somewhere below, passers-by hurry home, unaware that centuries earlier a frightened man begged a sculptor to trade chisel strokes for redemption. Which draws us to stories handed down by tavern fires long after the principles turned to dust. One favorite recounts a duel of wits between two rival assassins hired by feuding nobles. Instead of blades, they fought with forged letters, each intercepting and altering the other's dispatches until the nobles, bewildered by contradictory orders, concluded both agents were traitors and quietly cancelled the contracts. Stripped of payment, the assassins found themselves laughing together over cheap ale, recognizing how absurd their spiral had become. They supposedly swore a pact to abandon the trade and open a pottery workshop in a distant valley. Every peasant pot unearthed there now is rumored to carry their maker's mark, two intertwined daggers stamped discreetly on the base. Is the tale true? No chronicler confirms it, yet archaeologists occasionally find medieval pots with curious twin-blade symbols. Perhaps coincidence, perhaps proof that even the darkest professions sometimes pivot toward clay and firelight. Let that image of spinning pottery wheels lull you, the slow rotation, the soft hiss of wet clay, the reassuring smack of palms shaping something harmless. All the while, far away on royal roads, caravan guards swapped rumors that assassins had infiltrated artisan guilds, turning craftsmen's meetings into clandestine information exchanges. Was the new glassblower actually smuggling coded messages inside hollow beads? Did the weaver's latest tapestry hide a map to a duke's secret hunting lodge? Such whispers stoked a marketplace for paranoia, and soon every cracked wagon wheel or misdyed bolt of cloth became a potential sign of sabotage. Perhaps you recognize the rhythm here: rumor swells, fear follows, and a weary populace lies awake at night, listening for footfalls outside. Yet in our present moment, safe, still, soft-lit, you may feel how counterpoint works. Knowledge of their unease becomes your ease. Their midnight watches grant you permission to drift. All the while, far away on royal roads, caravan guards swapped rumors that assassins had infiltrated artisan guilds, turning craftsmen's meetings into clandestine information exchanges. Was the new glassblower actually smuggling coded messages inside hollow beads? Did the weaver's latest tapestry hide a map to a duke's secret hunting lodge? Such whispers stoked a marketplace for paranoia, and soon every cracked wagon wheel or misdyed bolt of cloth became a potential sign of sabotage. Perhaps you recognize the rhythm here. Rumor swells, fear follows, and a weary populace lies awake at night, listening for footfalls outside. Yet in our present moment, safe, still, soft-lit, you may feel how counterpoint works. Knowledge of their unease becomes your ease. Their midnight watches grant you permission to drift. And drift we shall, across borders into other realms. In Italian city-states, professional poisoners emerged, expert at dosing sugared wine with white arsenic ground finer than flour. They wrote anonymous pamphlets detailing symptoms, convulsions, pallid skin, the sweet smell on the breath, selling both cure and cause in a single packet. Over the Alps, Swiss mercenaries brag that no assassin could outmatch their pikes and halberds, yet more than once a lone killer slipped between ranks at dusk, severing a banner pole and vanishing before sunrise, humiliating entire companies. In Moorish Spain, shadow workers mastered hollow cane blowpipes tipped with curare-like compounds imported along Saharan routes. Their method required absolute stillness. One breath held, one dart expelled, one silent footstep back into jasmine-scented courtyards. Many European chroniclers dismissed such tales as fanciful, yet fear travels faster than proof. By the time gossip reached a Flemish port, dockworkers swore poisoned darts could cross entire moats. Masters paid extra to install iron grills over bedchamber windows, sleep costly in coin and comfort alike. Even the Church, for all its moral authority, struggled against the profession. Edicts thundered from cathedral pulpits, "Whoso sheathes his blade in innocent blood shall perish by eternal fire." Yet some assassins found employment precisely within ecclesiastic feuds, cardinals maneuvering during papal schisms, abbots guarding relic disputes. In confessionals, priests heard whispered guilt but were bound by sacred seal, leaving them helpless to prevent future crimes. Imagine kneeling on cold stone, the assassin murmuring sins through a wooden lattice while incense coils upward. The confessor's voice trembles, offers penance, but he knows absolution alone cannot untie this knot. He may assign a pilgrimage, but will the penitent ever undertake it? You can almost smell frankincense mingling with damp wool, the blend of holiness and human frailty, that aromatic bridge between wakefulness and dreams. Follow, now, a less documented thread: female assassins. Chronicles written by men often skip them, yet rumors persist of widows turned blades for hire after plague left them penniless. They posed as midwives or traveling herb wives, carrying satchels of rue, foxglove, and crushed monkshood. A soothing draught for childbirth pains might, at slightly higher dose, still those pains forever. Their advantage lay in invisibility. Society overlooked them until it was too late. One anecdote tells of quiet Agnes, summoned to a castle to attend a countess's confinement. When the infant failed to breathe, grief blinded the household, and no one noticed Agnes slipping into the Lord's solar later that night. By morning the Count, too, was lifeless, and Agnes had vanished along the winding river road, leaving behind only a trove of letters exposing his war profiteering. Whether avenging angel or opportunist, history files her under rumor, yet the echo of her steps fills certain riverside chapels where candles still burn for unnamed souls. As you ponder her silhouette fading down torchlit corridors, perhaps your own thoughts begin to blur at the edges, melting like wax around a wick. Eventually every city implemented curfews, statutes, watch posts, like patching holes in a sieve one by one. Yet new holes always opened. An assassin, after all, was simply the sharp end of a grievance. Remove one weapon, the hand carves another. Legislators learned this the hard way when a ban on edged blades gave birth to weighted cudgels, prohibitions against cudgels birthed garrots, laws against garrots sparked creative uses of brick shards wrapped in cloth. The dance between control and defiance is endless, a pendulum swinging slow and hypnotic, tick of a city gate closing at dusk, talk of clandestine knock on a cellar door at midnight. Imagine that pendulum sound beating beneath the narrative, marking time until your breathing sinks and slows. Yet amid darkness there were, on rare nights, small mercies. A storm might flood streets, washing away footprints and stalling horsemen. A guard might pause to feed a stray cat, giving a fleeing figure precious seconds to vanish. A single candle stub left in a chapel might guide stumbling feet. These accidental kindnesses shine like sparks in soot, faint, ephemeral, illuminating just enough path for one more step. And in those sparks, some assassins glimpsed possibility of a different life, blacksmith's apprentice, deckhand, even humble monk copying psalms. A few truly slipped through, reinventing themselves far from former hunting grounds. Maybe one became the fisherman we imagined, maybe one became the quiet stonecarver etching saints into cloister columns, maybe one now lies beneath an unmarked fieldstone, daisies nodding above, sins at last compost for spring blossoms. No chronicler will confirm or deny. The past, like a well-worn cloak, has holes where stories fall out. As our own story nears its gentle tail end, feel the loom of centuries reweaving threads behind us. The market stalls fold, torches extinguish, watch bells cease. Rain gutters stop dripping, straw-packed doorways settle into hush. One by one, every restless ghost of sharp steel and sharper hunger curls away, exhausted, curling like parchment edges near a dying ember. And you, safe traveler through time, can release the final tension in shoulders and jaw, knowing the alleyways are silent for the night. Before sleep fully claims you, let a final hook glimmer faintly in your mind's eye, somewhere, perhaps beneath a stone church floor or inside an oak chest sealed with corroded iron, lies a leather diary penned in cramped script. Its brittle pages record names, dates, fees, regrets, every secret footstep the shadow ever took. Historians seek it still, dreaming of revelations that could rewrite noble family trees and unravel half the folklore of assassins. But the diary remains elusive, tucked where torchlight never reached, waiting for a finder who may never come. Until that day, the legend slumbers, just as you will in moments, wrapped in patient quiet, content to be half told beneath layers of dust and moonlight. As our own story nears its gentle tail end, feel the loom of centuries reweaving threads behind us. The market stalls fold, torches extinguish, watch bells cease. Rain gutters stop dripping, straw-packed doorways settle into hush. One by one, every restless ghost of sharp steel and sharper hunger curls away, exhausted, curling like parchment edges near a dying ember. And you, safe traveler through time, can release the final tension in shoulders and jaw, knowing the alleyways are silent for the night. Before sleep fully claims you, let a final hook glimmer faintly in your mind's eye. Somewhere, perhaps beneath a stone church floor or inside an oak chest sealed with corroded iron, lies a leather diary penned in cramped script. Its brittle pages record names, dates, fees, regrets, every secret footstep the shadow ever took. Historians seek it still, dreaming of revelations that could rewrite noble family trees and unravel half the folklore of assassins. But the diary remains elusive, tucked where torchlight never reached, waiting for a finder who may never come. Until that day, the legend slumbers, just as you will in moments, wrapped in patient quiet, content to be half told beneath layers of dust and moonlight. So let lids grow heavy. Let breaths lengthen. Hear distant waves or rain or wind, or perhaps only your own pulse, steady, slow, sure. The medieval world fades like ink washed by time, leaving only soft gray shadows. They dissolve at the edges of thought. Soon even the faint glimmer of that hidden diary flickers out. Nothing left but calm darkness, velvet and deep. Surrender to it. Drift. Rest. The story will watch the door until dawn, and when sunlight arrives, both it and the assassin's weary ghost will step quietly aside, allowing you to wake refreshed, unburdened, and perhaps, just perhaps, curious for the next whisper of boring history that keeps sleep so sweet. Imagine dawn stretching over the cobblestones like a pale ribbon, thin and fragile, while baker ovens crack open and leak ribbons of warmth into the same streets that hours before echoed with muffled footfalls and whispered threats. Our story lingers a moment longer, drifting from rooftop shadows down into those soft morning aromas, fresh bread, wood smoke, the faint tang of damp wool hanging from window ledges, because every assassin, even a weary veteran, had to share space with ordinary life. Sometimes the gentle clatter of milk pails at first light struck the shadow harder than any sword edge, reminding him that other people woke to clear tasks, clean consciences, and sunlit futures. That contrast, quiet domesticity beside silent crime, felt like a thin splinter under his thumb, impossible to ignore yet just small enough to tolerate for one more day. It's a thought you might let pass through your own mind, noticing how even unremarkable details, a whiff of rye crust, a faint footstep overhead, can carry you gently toward that hazy shoreline between waking and sleep. In those same mornings, guild apprentices hurried along bridge planks above the river, balancing baskets of dyed wool or bundles of firewood. The shadow, cloak still damp with night mist, often stepped aside, blending among them like a loose thread in a tapestry. Yet beneath the casual shuffle lay constant math, distance to the nearest alley, weight of coins in purse, angle of sun that might glint off hidden steel. Such vigilance never rested, but it dulled into background hum, not unlike the quiet buzz of a city stirring, cartwheels creaking, roosters crowing far off, sounds soft enough to encourage your own eyelids to droop as we coast farther downstream. Travel downstream we shall, aboard a barge creaking toward a distant fair. Traders shout bargains over deck rails, and somewhere below the hold, our assassin keeps to the shadows between barrels of salted fish, listening to gossip that leaks through deck boards, talk of a tournament in the next county, a plague scare in the last, rumors of coin shortages driving up bread prices. Each snippet becomes potential leverage, a hook for a new job, or caution to avoid a doomed village. He files them away like little blades covertly stashed in boots, useful when the time comes. You, too, might tuck a few into your drifting thoughts, a whispered rumor here, a stray name there, each small enough to hold but dull enough not to prick, letting your mind idle like that barge rocking on gentle current. Night travels faster on the river. By the time torches flare along the docks of the fairground, a carnival swirl of sound and color erupts, cranked hurdy-gurdy drones, laughing drunkards, sizzling grease from meat pies. Among garishly painted stalls stands a fortune-teller's tent, smelling of clove smoke and beeswax. Inside, a stooped matron invites passers-by to place palms on a cracked glass orb. When our shadow, half curious, half wary, complies, she traces scar lines across his skin, humming as though reading Braille. In a rasp that sounds like wind through dead leaves she murmurs, "You carry two shadows tonight, one behind you, one ahead." A chill pricks his spine, he slips away before she finishes, but her words cling like burrs. Two shadows, perhaps one is guilt, the other fate. Hooks like these, gentle and unsettling, snag the imagination just enough to keep you tethered to the story as slumber edges closer. Beyond the fairground, trails twist into low hills dotted with sheep. The assassin joins a ragged procession of pilgrims bound for a hilltop shrine said to grant absolution at sunrise. Most pilgrims trudge barefoot, muttering rote prayers or singing tremulous hymns. Our assassin mouths no verses but walks with them, tasting the dusty air, considering the mathematics of penance. Could one night on blistered feet balance years of sin? At the hill's crest, pilgrims kneel before a weather-smoothed statue, pressing foreheads to cool stone. The shadow hovers at the back, feeling prayers swirl around him like smoke, rising, thinning, vanishing. When dawn pinks the clouds, bells toll from far-off abbeys, and for a breath he imagines every dagger stain washed clean. Then a ragged boy beside him coughs crimson, plague or worse, and fear snaps the reverie. The world resumes its rough edges, repentance retreats behind more pressing calculations, escape routes, safe water, distance to the next walled town. Still your breathing remains slow, your blanket warm, because none of those grave realities can cross the threshold of your safe room. Instead, picture the pilgrims descending, morning sun washing hillside grass in bright gold that flickers through your mind like closing theater curtains, lulling rather than alarming. Beyond the fairground, trails twist into low hills dotted with sheep. The assassin joins a ragged procession of pilgrims bound for a hilltop shrine said to grant absolution at sunrise. Most pilgrims trudge barefoot, muttering rote prayers or singing tremulous hymns. Our assassin mouths no verses but walks with them, tasting the dusty air, considering the mathematics of penance. Could one night on blistered feet balance years of sin? At the hill's crest, pilgrims kneel before a weather-smoothed statue, pressing foreheads to cool stone. The shadow hovers at the back, feeling prayers swirl around him like smoke, rising, thinning, vanishing. When dawn pinks the clouds, bells toll from far-off abbeys, and for a breath he imagines every dagger stain washed clean. Then a ragged boy beside him coughs crimson, plague or worse, and fear snaps the reverie. The world resumes its rough edges, repentance retreats behind more pressing calculations, escape routes, safe water, distance to the next walled town. Still your breathing remains slow, your blanket warm, because none of those grave realities can cross the threshold of your safe room. Instead, Picture the pilgrims descending, morning sun washing hillside grass in bright gold that flickers through your mind like closing theater curtains, lulling rather than alarming. We turn now to the tools again, but deeper still, into their origins. In a nameless valley, smiths famous for secret alloys coax blades from charcoal forges. Iron so pure it rings like a bell when struck. Yet every blade requires ore, charcoal, muscle, and a buyer. Merchants arrive with guarded wagons, exchanging sacks of river pearls or rolls of embroidered silk from far Cathay. Somewhere among these legitimate trades slips a quiet figure offering unmarked silver lumps melted from stolen chalices. The smiths, neither moralists nor fools, test purity then hammer payment flat, forging it into counterweights. Even money becomes a weapon, its weight recalibrated for perfect balance in the palm, proof that in this world, everything circles back to violence wearing the cloak of need. But as you imagine hammer strokes echoing across the valley walls, the repetition likely rocks your own senses, the rhythmic clang like the slow, measured tick that eases you down into that dream fog valley too. The shadow eventually handles one such blade, sleeker, finer, deadlier than the pitted iron he carried years earlier. Yet the upgrade feels, oddly heavy. Not in ounces, but in implication. An expensive knife demands expensive targets, which draw dangerous patrons. Higher pay, but narrower walkways to survival. Even now, you might sense that subtle tension, smooth-edged hook embedded in the narrative to keep curiosity afloat while the rest of you sinks deeper into pillows. Elsewhere, whole monasteries copy herbals noting medicinal and toxic plants in careful Latin. Some scribes, tempted by higher coin than vows provide, secretly illuminate side margins with coded dosage charts, ink so faint it shows only under candlelight, information traded in silence to traveling killers. One such manuscript, legend says, carried a curse, each owner met demise by the very toxin described on the page he lingered upon longest. True? Perhaps. But monks whispered it often enough that potential buyers insisted on gloves, fueling yet another microeconomy, embroiderers stitching poison-proof kid-skin mitts sold at ruthless markups. The entire ecosystem of murder becomes plain. Violence doesn't exist alone, it spawns side trades like mushrooms in damp cellars, mushrooms that, incidentally, sometimes slip into soups with lethal intent. Let the scent of mushroom broth drift faintly through your imagination, earthy and rich, steam rising in lazy tendrils. Somewhere in that imagined kitchen, a cook stirs with wooden ladle, unaware of the rogue cap floating just beneath the surface. The broth simmers quietly, bubbles popping in even rhythm, pop, 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 inviting your pulse to follow suit, slower, slower, thoughts softening like carrots steeped too long. Our narrative meanders next to winter, when assassins dreaded snow more than arrows. Footprints exposed routes, breath plumed like beacon smoke. Yet some found ways, wrapping cloth around boots, timing breaths with wind gusts, slipping through abbey cloisters where cloaked monks glided silent as swans. In those months, jobs dwindled, noble courts huddled behind hearths, gates barred, trusting frost as defense. So assassins took cheaper cutthroat contracts in taverns, debt collectors, intimidation specialists, gamblers' enforcers. Not glorious, but it bought stew and straw. You might feel the itch of that straw, prickly yet somehow comforting, like the faint scratch of a wool blanket shifting atop you while you edge closer to sleep. Meanwhile, city chroniclers penned broadside ballads celebrating watchman heroics, ignoring bribes sliding beneath their own desks. The shadow often chuckled at such verses, "Hear ye, good citizens, foes of the night fall 'neath brave lantern light." Yet every poet still locked his door at dusk. That irony tasted bittersweet, like burnt sugar, forgotten on the flame a shade too long, filling the back of your throat with mild warmth before dissolving into nothing. As seasons will once more to spring, plague flags fall and markets bloom, and our assassin re-enters a metropolis newly teeming. Carnival masks bob in crowded lanes, painted grins undercut by restless eyes. The Guild of Physicians has posted broadsheets about new cures, leeches boiled in wine, while sellers of lucky talismans claim their trinkets guarantee immunity. In this swirl, the shadow slips unremarked, noting which district prints the broadsheets, which guard rotation covers the print yard, what time the warehouse shutters close. Every detail stockpiled, like dream images your own brain sets aside for later weaving once REM pulls you deeper. During Carnival, one tradition involves burning an effigy of Old Misery on Midsummer Eve, each citizen tossing into the bonfire some written grievance against fate. The flames crackle high, sparks chasing night sky, and the crowd cheers release of accumulated fear. Our shadow, hidden at the edge, contemplates dropping a tiny scrap too, perhaps scribbled with a single word, guilt. But to approach the pyre means stepping into torchlight, revealing profile, risking a sharp eye in the crowd recognizing him. So he lingers, unpurged, letting the fire roar without his confession. Imagine watching that bonfire from safe distance, the heat on your cheeks, the hypnotic dance of embers, their glow flickering across faces then fading into coals as revelers stagger home. It's a scene so mesmerizing you may barely notice your own muscles loosening further, warmth spreading from spine to fingertips. Eventually, as every lifespan must, the assassin's thread wears thin. A minor wound festers, a healer's poultice fails. Fevered dreams blur present and past. He lies in a cramped loft above a cooper's workshop, the smell of tarred barrels thick in the air. Shadows twitch in candle corners, replaying old corridors, old rooftops. In delirium he mistakes the cooper's apprentice for a rival, lunges, but strength fails, blade clatters. The apprentice flees for a constable, but by the time boots hammer stairs, the shadow's pulse has already slowed to stillness, leaving only quiet in its wake. During Carnival, one tradition involves burning an effigy of Old Misery on Midsummer Eve, each citizen tossing into the bonfire some written grievance against fate. The flames crackle high, sparks chasing night sky, and the crowd cheers release of accumulated fear. Our shadow, hidden at the edge, contemplates dropping a tiny scrap too, perhaps scribbled with a single word, guilt. But to approach the pyre means stepping into torchlight, revealing profile, risking a sharp eye in the crowd recognizing him. So he lingers, unpurged, letting the fire roar without his confession. Imagine watching that bonfire from safe distance, the heat on your cheeks, the hypnotic dance of embers, their glow flickering across faces then fading into coals as revelers stagger home. It's a scene so mesmerizing you may barely notice your own muscles loosening further, warmth spreading from spine to fingertips. Eventually, as every lifespan must, the assassin's thread wears thin. A minor wound festers, a healer's poultice fails. Fevered dreams blur present and past. He lies in a cramped loft above a cooper's workshop, the smell of tarred barrels thick in the air. Shadows twitch in candle corners, replaying old corridors, old rooftops. In delirium he mistakes the cooper's apprentice for a rival, lunges, but strength fails, blade clatters. The apprentice flees for a constable, but by the time Boots' hammer stares, the shadow's pulse has already slowed to stillness, leaving only quiet in its wake. Records will show a vagrant found deceased, likely fever, nothing more. Few tears shed, though perhaps somewhere a fortune-teller senses a second shadow vanishing at last. Maybe one pilgrim in the distant hill shrine mumbles an extra prayer without knowing why. Life closes over the absence like water smoothing after a sinking stone, circles expand, fade, gone. But every life, however hidden, leaves ripples in stories. Tonight those ripples have carried gently across centuries to lap at your bedside, soothing in their cyclical hush. Listen, footsteps gone, bells distant, waves slow, breath steady. Our journey with the medieval assassin contracts to a final whisper, a tiny clink of coins in an unclaimed purse left on a dusty shelf. No more contracts, no more waiting, no more fear. In the hush that follows, allow your thoughts to settle like soft dust, undisturbed. There's no need to follow the story any further. History itself sets down the quill, closes the brittle ledger, and slips it into shadowed shelf recesses where ink can sleep undisturbed for another 100 lifetimes. And you, dear traveler of that ink-thick night, can now surrender fully to the quiet. Let muscles unclench. Let eyes sink behind cooling lids. Let heartbeats match a rhythm older than rooftops or a river current, the slow tide of breath in, out, until the assassin's echoes merge with soft dreams of your own, harmless and hushed. The cobblestones are empty, the daggers sheathed forever, and the moon has drifted beyond the eaves. All is still. All is safe. All is sleep. Yet stories rarely end at the closing of a single ledger or the quiet of a shuttered loft. Long after the shadow's lifeline stilled, the city itself kept breathing, exhaling fog through river arches, inhaling rumors through tavern doors, so the tale of its vanished assassin traveled like a seed on restless wind. Picture a generation later, a cohort of children scuffing marbles along cracked flagstones. When one marble rolls astray, disappearing into a drainage grate, they swear they glimpse a glint of steel down there, too bright, too purposeful to be lost junk. That's the assassin's blade, a bold one whispers, voice quivering between fear and brag. Another child counters, can't be. Everyone knows he sailed away. And thus a playground skirmish sparks, energetic as gulls squabbling for crumbs, each story stretching the truth a bit farther until none of them quite remembers whose marble was lost in the first place. Hooks upon hooks. If a tiny child can't resist the mystery, how could any grown listener keep from tilting an ear a moment longer? You feel it, don't you? A faint tug down the storyline that keeps you floating just above sleep's surface, even as your eyelids drift heavier. By midsummer of that same year, a traveling jongler arrives, juggling copper knives for a crowd in the market square. His patter includes a teasing verse about the ghost of the night stairs, a rascal who stole silver with the same grace a priest lifts souls to heaven. The crowd laughs, coins clink, but among the laughter, an elderly cooper's apprentice, yes, the same lad who once fled the fevered loft, turns pale, recognizing the cadence of footsteps the jongleur imitates. His heart quickens, yet memories melt into the far-off clang of a city bell. He shakes off the chill, telling himself ghosts can't climb out of coffins. Still, he double bars the shop door that night. We keep layering small echoes like these, a ripple here, a tremor there, to guide your mind along, slow and easy, until those ripples flatten into glass-calm water perfect for reflection, perfect for rest. Meanwhile, the purse left on that dusty shelf becomes an unexpected catalyst. A local magistrate's clerk discovers it while inventorying unpaid rents. Opening the cracked leather, he finds not only coins but a folded scrap of parchment bearing a ciphered list of names. They're unsigned, the ink browned with time, yet the clerk can read enough to recognize aldermen, dockmasters, a bishop's under-steward. His pulse skips, a single wrong move could brand him complicit. He seals the purse again, hiding it in a desk drawer, for further study, but sleep deserts him for weeks. He imagines blades behind curtains, poison in the inkpot. Slowly, paranoia seeps outward, he starts skipping evening walks, drafts letters requesting transfer to quieter districts, avoids eye contact with even old friends. You see? Even relics of violence can corrode peace long after the hand that wielded them turns to bone dust. And yet, hearing of another man's sleeplessness paradoxically coaxes you deeper toward serene drowsiness, his racing thoughts substituted so yours can slow. Sparkle's nightfall nudge, if you're still listening, let this be a gentle reminder to subscribe so every secret corner of history finds its way to you first, each whispered era, each forgotten footnote, delivered right when the world settles, just like tonight. One subtle tap, and you'll never miss a soothing descent into the past. Sparkles. Now drift with me into autumn, when wind rattles shutters and loosens rooftop tiles to clatter down lanes. A mason repairing a cornice finds a single slate bearing a carved sigil, two slim blades crossing beneath a moon. He pockets it, thinking to show the guild master. By evening, talk in the pub spins fantasy, hidden orders, moonlit duels, forgotten oaths. Each retelling gilds the symbol further until someone swears the mason also found a map scratched on the reverse. The pub candles flicker, eyes widen, ale tastes sharper. Outside, leaves swirl along gutters, hissing like secret parchment pages turning themselves. Somewhere in the dark, an owl hoots, and you might feel the sound settle inside your chest, low and resonant, coaxing your breaths to match its measured intervals. Sparkle's nightfall nudge, if you're still listening, let this be a gentle reminder to subscribe so every secret corner of history finds its way to you first, each whispered era, each forgotten footnote, delivered right when the world settles, just like tonight. One subtle tap, and you'll never miss a soothing descent into the past. Sparkles. Now drift with me into autumn, when wind rattles shutters and loosens rooftop tiles to clatter down lanes. A mason repairing a cornice finds a single slate bearing a carved sigil, two slim blades crossing beneath a moon. He pockets it, thinking to show the guild master. By evening, talk in the pub spins fantasy, hidden orders, moonlit duels, forgotten oaths. Each retelling gilds the symbol further until someone swears the mason also found a map scratched on the reverse. The pub candles flicker, eyes widen, ale tastes sharper. Outside, leaves swirl along gutters, hissing like secret parchment pages turning themselves. Somewhere in the dark, an owl hoots, and you might feel the sound settle inside your chest, low and resonant, coaxing your breaths to match its measured intervals. With winter comes a new city ordinance. All hidden spaces beneath floorboards must be reported, for thieves exploit rat tunnels to rob reputable citizens. The inspector assigned is none other than a former peace bond keeper who once dimly glimpsed our assassin in a moonlit alley decades past. Humorless and aging, he limps from property to property rapping floorboards, listening for hollows. In a half-collapsed granary, he uncovers a shallow niche containing an iron ring, a sliver of bone carved with runic markings, and a quill whose nib is still faintly stained. He pockets these items with trembling fingers, meaning to log them properly at the city hall, though in truth, he wishes to keep one object as a souvenir, a token of a life spent chasing shadows. That night he dreams not of glory, but of an endless corridor lined with doors. Each door opens into another corridor, no exits, just more doors. When he wakes, the iron ring feels heavier in his pocket, as if it absorbed the weight of years. The inspector's dreamscape integrates seamlessly with your own drifting consciousness. Corridors lengthen, doors recede, until they blur and dissolve into soft gray nothing, the perfect corridor towards sleep. Now let's cross the river again, where scholars at a modest university compile a lexicon of outlaw slang. In dusty archives, one scholar stumbles upon a yellowing scroll referencing shadow runs, coded routes across the city rooftops attributed to a single unnamed architect, our old friend. The document outlines angles, roof pitches, chimney heights. It reads almost like a lullaby of measurements: 2 paces north, half pace west, drop 6 feet, roll. Over and over the scholar chants these phrases, struggling to decode. He stands, paces the reading room, muttering the sequence. Another scholar smiles politely, assuming it's mnemonic for Latin conjugations. In reality, the rhythm could guide a person through darkness without lantern or moon. You can feel that repetitious cadence seeping into the narrative: step, pause, drop, roll, encouraging your own thoughts to tumble slowly, gently, into a cushioned abyss of oblivion. Far beyond city walls, the seaside continues its quiet witness. Fishermen cast nets at dawn, and sometimes a new recruit, perhaps a young orphan, asks the oldest deckhand about the rumor that their bay once sheltered a sly stranger with scars on knuckles and eyes like spent coal. The elder laughs, lines creasing sun-leathered skin, and answers that the sea steals more memories than men do. Yet later, alone, he reaches into a wooden box and withdraws a tiny lead cross on a fraying cord. He rubs a thumb across it, just once, before tucking it away. Out on open water, gulls keen overhead, wind snaps sails taut, waves slap hull boards in steady, lulling rhythm. It's the repetition again: slap, hush, slap, hush, soft as a cradle rock for the brain. If you listen close, you can almost align your breathing to those waves. Generations pass. Streets widen, citadels crumble, plague flags reappear and vanish in cycles. The assassin's memory shifts from half-fact to full legend, then to jest, then to archaic footnote in dusty sermons about the wages of sin. A lamp maker fashions novelty lanterns etched with silhouette of a hooded man, projecting elongated shadow dances onto festival walls. Children giggle, chasing those silhouettes with sticks, never guessing they mimic footfalls that once padded across city roofs. The cycle of commerce continues. Fear becomes entertainment, entertainment becomes tradition. Meanwhile your heart rate dips lower, comforted by the notion that every grim tremor eventually melts into something benign. Centuries later, a modern archivist scanning brittle folios pauses on a curious expense report, 30 souls for discreet removal of pestilent vagrant above Cooper shop. No name, no detail, just a ledger line. She shrugs, tagging it for further context. Digital copies join cloud databases, keywords cross-link to other references, crows in cages, smokeless candles, lead crosses. Patterns emerge for those who dig, but interest is scholarly, sanitized. The archivist sips lukewarm tea, never feeling the faint brush of dread those objects once carried. You, listening, can sense the sharp edges dulled by time, transformed into gentle curves sliding you further toward slumber. Still, somewhere in a pawnshop basement, a spare dagger remains unsold. Its steel is strangely resonant, ringing faintly when tapped against shelf edge. The pawnbroker's grandson, bored on a rainy afternoon, tests it, enthralled by that clear note. He thinks of making a flute with similar alloy one day, a musical vision far removed from bloodshed. Imagine a dagger reforged into a flute, its deadly purpose blown into melody. The notion itself hums through this narrative like a sweet breeze, lifting burdens, promising transformation. Under such a melody, quiet, steady, breath-fed, your eyelids sink heavier than ever, because the world has flipped the blade, turned danger into music, and danger's ghosts into silent backdrops for dreams. And dreams do come. Perhaps tonight you'll walk a moonlit wall yourself, only this time the moss is soft, the air fragrant with blossoms, and no looming fear chases you. You step lightly, arms out for balance, and a chorus of distant bells marks safe passage. There's no contract, no rival, no watchman, only you, the night, and the far-off hush of a friendly sea. That vision hovers at the edge of consciousness, inviting you across. So take the invitation. Let shoulders sink deeper into the mattress, spine uncoil, brow unfurrow. Inhale slow through the nose, exhale even slower. You have reached the softest fold of the narrative, where every hook relaxes and every calculated suspense dissolves into balm. The assassin streets lie empty now, swept clean by centuries of dawns. The ledgers are dust, the blades recast, the river rerouted. All that remains is the calm hush, stretching vast and still around your resting form. There are no more footsteps to follow, no more cards left unturned. And that, dear listener, is the final, gentle truth meant for tonight. Every story, no matter how shadowed, finds its quiet shore. You've reached yours. Sleep, now, and let even the faintest echoes of medieval alleys fade into the deepest, kindest dark. And dreams do come. Perhaps tonight you'll walk a moonlit wall yourself, only this time the moss is soft, the air fragrant with blossoms, and no looming fear chases you. You step lightly, arms out for balance, and a chorus of distant bells marks safe passage. There's no contract, no rival, no watchman, only you, the night, and the far-off hush of a friendly sea. That vision hovers at the edge of consciousness, inviting you across. So take the invitation. Let shoulders sink deeper into the mattress, spine uncoil, brow unfurrow. Inhale slow through the nose, exhale even slower. You have reached the softest fold of the narrative, where every hook relaxes and every calculated suspense dissolves into balm. The assassin streets lie empty now, swept clean by centuries of dawns. The ledgers are dust, the blades recast, the river rerouted. All that remains is the calm hush, stretching vast and still around your resting form. There are no more footsteps to follow, no more cards left unturned. And that, dear listener, is the final, gentle truth meant for tonight. Every story, no matter how shadowed, finds its quiet shore. You've reached yours. Sleep, now, and let even the faintest echoes of medieval alleys fade into the deepest, kindest dark. Picture night settling once more, soft as altar incense drifting through a ruined abbey whose roof long ago surrendered to starlight. The nave is gutted, but moon-washed columns still suggest ribcages of some giant creature now at rest. Centuries have passed since our assassin haunted these streets, yet here, mossy stone still remembers. A postgraduate archaeology class has come to map the ruin. They set laser levels and delicate trowels under electric lanterns that cast a pale, non-flickering glow, so different from guttering torches of old, and yet the shadows they throw are just as long. One student pries at a loose flagstone and uncovers, not treasure, but the corner of a crudely shaped lead cross and the stub of a crow's feather blackened with age. She lifts them carefully, turning them between latex-gloved fingers, wondering whether some medieval pilgrim dropped a keepsake or whether she stumbled on a relic with a darker story. The supervising professor shrugs. Lead trinkets were common offerings, but the feather's preservation intrigues him. He seals both in specimen bags, labeling them with neat block letters. Evidence catalogued, mystery deferred. That night, the team bivouacs in the cloister garden. Wind threads through broken arches, carrying the sweet damp of nettle and crushed thyme. The students whisper ghost tales to stave off nerves, and inevitably someone raises the legend of the shadow. Laptops buzz awake, smoothing rumor into digital factoids. There's a blurred photograph of a gargoyle with sneering lips, a scan of that ledger line about the pestilent vagrant, a folk ballad half-remembered from a 19th century anthology. They pass headphones, listening to an old field recording in which an elderly fisher sings a salt-rough lullaby about a man who walked the night stair and never came home. The younger listeners press closer, eyes bright in LCD glow. Outside the circle of light, moths will in silence, and beyond them, the abbey's long colonnade watches like a patient sentinel. The hush grows velvety again, a perfect nest for your loosening thoughts. Past midnight, the generator stutters, fuel low, so lanterns dim to orangey embers. One by one, students slip into tents, leaving only the professor hunched over a notebook. He sketches the abbey's floor plan, annotating each crusader grave, each drain channel, each suspicious hollow where antiquarians once looted. His pen strokes scratch softly, steady as a lullaby. In the margin he writes a question mark beside the feather, Corvus Corex? common raven, or something rarer. But the ink droops as his eyes blur, pen slips, line curls into nothing. He dozes upright, chin dipping to chest. Wind turns pages for him, rustle by rustle, a rhythm your own breathing mirrors, page, breath, until both quiet entirely. At first light, dew beads the ruined transept. A skylark flits overhead, its trill bright against still blue sky. The professor wakes to find his notebook closed and the specimen-bagged feather gone. Only a faint indentation where it lay. Puzzled, he questions the students, but no one admits to touching it. They shrug, rub sleep-red eyes, get back to scraping soil. Perhaps the feather blew away in the night. Perhaps a fox nosed it out. Perhaps, though no one says so aloud, one last remnant of an old profession refused to be catalogued, preferring to remain rumor. The loss becomes a footnote in the final report. The lead cross, at least, survives the lab, later displayed in a glass case with a placard reading, Pilgrim Token, 13th to 14th C, provenance uncertain. Museum-goers stare, unaware they're an arm's length from a talisman clutched once in shaking hands before a late-night job. Meanwhile the feather, wherever it drifted, decays imperceptibly into soil, feeding grass roots that sway, unnoticed, beneath visitors' steps. Even artifacts seek rest eventually, and soil is the surest bed. Seasons cycle. On a wet spring morning, torrential rain churns riverbanks, and a cracked leather satchel, long lodged under silt, dislodges and floats downstream. It snags against a willow root near a suburban jogging path. A runner spots it, hauls it out, laughs at the antique buckle. Inside are 3 tarnished silver coins bearing square holes, foreign mint none can place, and a strip of parchment so water-eaten that only 2 letters remain, S and H. The runner snaps a photo, posts it online with a joking caption, "Medieval money bag, anyone?" The thread goes viral for an afternoon, spawning memes of time-traveling thieves and DIY treasure hunts. By evening the internet has moved on, the satchel dries on a shelf, forgotten under sports trophies. What once bought blood is now background clutter, faint leather aroma mingling with liniment and sweat. Violence downgraded to decor. The centuries have a way of sanding edges smooth. Under streetlights of a modern metropolis far from that river, an amateur historian leads flashlight tours titled, Murder and Mystery Walks. She tells bulky crowds about secret roof routes, smokeless candles, raven cages in apothecary basements. She embellishes freely, vivid gore, clandestine romances, coded sigils glowing under moonlight, but each flourish hooks her audience, sells more tickets. At one corner, she theatrically lifts a replica dagger, rubber, bright silver paint, and points to a corniced roofline. From there, our city's greatest phantom leapt to freedom. Phones flash, tourists gasp, and somewhere down the block a delivery cyclist rings a bell, uninterested. Commerce continues. The tour guide pockets tips, history morphs again. And you, listening, may notice how the hubbub of that tour recedes like distant surf, each gasp dissolving into a white noise hush that strokes your mind's edges, coaxing another slow exhale. Under streetlights of a modern metropolis far from that river, an amateur historian leads flashlight tours titled, Murder and Mystery Walks. She tells bulky crowds about secret roof routes, smokeless candles, raven cages in apothecary basements. She embellishes freely, vivid gore, clandestine romances, coded sigils glowing under moonlight, but each flourish hooks her audience, sells more tickets. At one corner, she theatrically lifts a replica dagger, rubber, bright silver paint, and points to a corniced roofline. From there, our city's greatest phantom leapt to freedom. Phones flash, tourists gasp, and somewhere down the block a delivery cyclist rings a bell, uninterested. Commerce continues. The tour guide pockets tips, history morphs again. And you, listening, may notice how the hubbub of that tour recedes like distant surf, each gasp dissolving into a white noise hush that strokes your mind's edges, coaxing another slow exhale. Back at the seaside village, the lead cross fisher's grandson, now an old man himself, mends nets at dusk. His joints ache, but routine soothes him. One moment, he pauses, draws from shirt pocket that tiny cross, rubs its worn edges, then, impulse sudden as gull wing, tosses it far into the harbor. The splash is small, barely a plip. Lead sinks quick, spiraling into green gloom where scuttling crabs wander. The old man doesn't know why he let it go, perhaps a dream last night of hooded figures, or maybe superstition finally demanded release. He shrugs at himself, returns to knots. Overhead clouds roll like soft blankets, lavender fading into star scatter. The harbor laps gently, washing nets, rocking hulls, whispering hush hush hush, a lullaby even salt-calloused sailors cannot resist. Somewhere inside you, that hush mirrors, steady and deep. News travels slow but sure, the abbey digs cross, the satchel coins, the harbor rumor, threads braid in podcasts, articles, late-night radio. A narrative emerges. Was there a secret guild of ravens? Did an assassin seed urban myths that shaped policing? Each host adds flair, background strings, creaking door sound effects, heartbeat percussion. Listeners stream episodes to snooze, their devices dimming as voices murmur of dim torchlight and rain-slick slate. You might have done the same, headphones snug, volume soft, until words blurred into breathy cadence and the world slipped away. See how story perpetuates itself, not by thrusts of daggers anymore, but by gentle taps of play buttons? Even danger learns to soften over time, sliding into bedtime companion. Last ripple for tonight, a young novelist, insomnia-prone, stumbles on archived interview audio of that elderly Cooper's apprentice describing endless corridors in fever dream. The novelist's imagination ignites. She drafts a sprawling tale of labyrinth cities and long-haunted rooftops. Her keyboard clacks into small hours quiet, and with each chapter she pours the dread into print, hoping to purge her sleeplessness. On publication day, readers devour pages, praising slow-burn suspense that lulls and chills simultaneously. Some even claim it helps them fall asleep, danger transformed into balm once more. The novelist receives letters from grateful insomniacs. She pins them above her desk like feathers, proud and astonished. So it is and so it goes. One life of sharp edges spawns centuries of softened echoes, coin to rumor, shadow to silhouette, fear to folk walk, blade to flute, lullaby to sleep. The city keeps breathing. Rivers keep whispering. Oceans keep erasing. And you, warm beneath your blanket, rest squarely in the quietest pocket of that ongoing sigh. No further lanterns need lighting tonight. The Abbey columns tilt out of vision, tour crowds disperse, keyboards still, harbor waves ebb to glassy hush. Let every muscle slacken. Let jaw unclench. Let the story's final coil loosen from your mind's spool, drifting featherlight toward the dark where thoughts dissolve. If a stray echo of the shadow passes across your dreams, rapid footstep, distant bell, know it is only history stretching its limbs, settling deeper. Nothing presses upon you now except peace. Here, at the calmest point of night, simply allow breath to flow and fall, steady tide against quiet shore. In, pause, out, pause, slower, softer. Streets empty, waves flatten, moon dims, and sleep, the truest, gentlest assassin, draws its comforting cloak about you, stealing every last wakeful stir without a trace. Centuries still turned, and at each turning the assassin's faint imprint dyed new cloth. During the gas lamp era, a clockmaker in a smoky Midlands town began carving tiny rooftop dioramas inside his mantel clocks, miniature chimneys, weathered shingles, a lone cloaked figurine forever paused mid-stride across a slanted plank. Customers wound the clocks for the pleasant tick-tock but soon found themselves staring into those scenes, wondering who the runnel-eyed figure was and why the hour hammer seemed to echo like distant boots on slate. Newspaper critics dubbed the pieces "thief of time" models, and demand outpaced production. The clockmaker worked by candle stub, shavings piling ankle-deep, until smoke and exhaustion nudged him toward silence. His last diary line before collapsing at the workbench read only, "Strange that fear sells the promise of order." The shop closed, clocks scattered to attics, yet their patient ticks persisted, measuring private midnights for sleepers who never learned the origin of the little man pacing inside. When electricity bathed boulevards in steady glow, shadow-walking felt impossible, yet stories adapted. A silent film director shot a flickering two-reel about a hooded prowler gliding along copper gutters above Paris. Each frame jump-cut between tense rooftop chases and soft dissolves of passers-by yawning safe in lamplight, a juxtaposition audiences found oddly soothing. The film was marketed as "excitement that invites slumber," and movie houses placed velvet headrests on seats for matinee nappers. Years later, a film archivist screening brittle nitrate prints at 3 a.m. felt his eyelids droop to the prowler's rhythmic leaps, frame, flicker, frame, until real slap woke him. He documented the phenomenon, a thriller acting unintentionally as lullaby, proof that danger repackaged through distance can crumple into comfort. Decades on, during radio's golden age, a late-night host, voice as smooth as molasses, aired a serialized drama called Ravens in the Rafters. Every episode ended with the same sign-off, a single footfall echoed 3 times, then a soft door click, then silence exactly 20 seconds long. Letters poured in from grateful listeners who said the pause lulled them straight into dreams, missing sponsor ads that followed. Advertisers complained, the host refused to shorten the silence, calling it "night's rightful breath." Ratings soared regardless, and the network ceded. You can almost hear that hush now, thump, 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 click, the long, velvety nothing that feels like your own pulse settling into featherweight calm. Decades on, during radio's golden age, a late-night host, voice as smooth as molasses, aired a serialized drama called Ravens in the Rafters. Every episode ended with the same sign-off: a single footfall echoed 3 times, then a soft door click, then silence exactly 20 seconds long. Letters poured in from grateful listeners who said the pause lulled them straight into dreams, missing sponsor ads that followed. Advertisers complained. The host refused to shorten the silence, calling it night's rightful breath. Ratings soared regardless, and the network ceded. You can almost hear that hush now. Thump, 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 click. The long, velvety nothing that feels like your own pulse settling into featherweight calm. And so to the present, a virtual reality historian simulates medieval rooftops for educational headsets. Users stroll digital eaves while ambient heartbeats adjust to their breathing. Hidden deep in the code, the developer embeds a tiny Easter egg avatar, a hooded figure who appears for just 1 frame every hour, too fleeting for conscious notice yet potent enough to graze the subconscious, adding a shimmer of intrigue that prolongs user engagement by measurable minutes. The company's internal memo congratulates the dev. Micro-mystery boosts dwell time. The figure is never named, never explained, yet the old legend migrates fluently into photons and code, doing what it has always done, drawing curiosity forward by half steps, then handing it over to drowsiness. Some future dusk, perhaps tonight, someone you'll never meet will lie awake in a high-rise, launch that VR skywalk, glimpse motion at edge of vision, and feel eyelids dip. They'll remove the headset mid-simulation, let it hum on the nightstand, and drift off before the rooftops finish rendering. They won't know why the calm settled so quickly, they'll credit a tiring workday. But we know a longer thread tugged them, one that began when a forgotten hand once tightened a garrote in rain and later regretted the tightening, one that wound through coins, feathers, gargoyles, nursery rhymes, mantle clocks, movie flickers, radio silences, podcasts, and headsets, finally looping into their bedroom like an invisible lullaby. By now you too float on that thread. Notice how slow your thoughts have become, how each exhale lengthens as if sinking to an antique mantle clock's pendulum. Slow swing left, slower swing right. The rooftops have vanished into gentle haze, the feather has dissolved into humus, even the faint glint beneath a child's drainage grate has dulled under moss. Nothing left to parse, no blade left to trace, only the certainty that stories carry us farther than footsteps ever could, until the road itself turns liquid and warm beneath closed lashes. So let the tick-tock recede, let rooftops flatten into twilight plains. If a stray echo surfaces, a crow's feather brushing stone, a tour guide's rubber dagger rapping air, see it drift back into the archive where it belongs. The world under your eyelids is wide and quiet, and sleep moves like patient tide. You are safe on its shore. Give in, fully and softly, to silence. Good night, traveler of shadows, may your dreams be ruthless, boundless, and kind. Somewhere, decades from now, perhaps in an era when drones hum like nightjars above neon avenues, a graduate coder, bleary-eyed at 2 in the morning, rummages through an open-source archive for procedural NPC routines. Among the tangle of forgotten files she chances upon an antique ASCII document labeled shadowrun _onestpass.txt. Intrigued, she scrolls past archaic comments in a language halfway between modern Python and medieval bookkeeping shorthand. The coder chuckles, yet the rhythm of those commands lingers: step, pause, drop, echoing ancient footfalls through silicon. Without meaning to, she tweaks the snippet into her city sim. Playtesters later report an odd calm in the game's night cycle, claiming they hear faint footsteps overhead that somehow make them sleepy. Analytics confirm longer average session times, but players sign off feeling rested rather than wired. Marketing scratches heads, the coder just smiles, surprised to have resurrected a lullaby disguised as stealth code. That, in essence, is how legends survive, not by clinging to blood but by seeping into cracks where new minds wander half awake. They trade daggers for subroutines, garrote knots for lull metrics, yet still whisper the same hush, the same half-danger that quiets the pulse. And now, with your own pulse steadying, your thoughts slow as an old pendulum, let us drift further along that hush. South of that coder's glowing monitor, in a dim warehouse-turned-art house loft, a sculptor welds scrap metal into rooftop tableaus, rusted gutters, slanted tiles, a hooded silhouette cut from iron sheet. Galleries label the series specters of infrastructure. Patrons nod gravely, sipping wine, unaware the pieces emit barely audible chimes whenever ambient temperature dips below a set point, thin metal flexing like sighing slate. The sculptor added the quirk after reading an esoteric blog about acoustic architecture of fear. Yet visitors describe the chime as soothing, almost like distant wind in eaves. Reviews rave, art that settles nerves, pieces sell, the hush spreads. Far across oceans, a children's book illustrator drafts a wordless picture book titled Nightwalk on the painted roofs. Pages bloom with pastel skylines under star fog, a plump, gentle cat leads the child protagonist across beams, while a benevolent shadow figure follows, ensuring safe landings. Test readings in libraries reveal toddlers yawning halfway through, curling into parents' laps. Publishers hail it as the anti-sugar rush bedtime miracle. The illustrator dedicates the book, for the silent guardian on every roof, whoever you were. Her agent assumes its metaphor. You, however, can hear the long echo, an assassin's remorse turned guardian myth, now coaxing children toward soft dreams. Meanwhile, a neuroscientist analyzing sleep induction discovers an obscure multi-century pattern: folk songs, radio scripts, VR Easter eggs, each referencing a 3-beat footfall followed by a pause. She dubs it the Shadow Triplet, publishes in Journal of Acoustic Hypnosis, and posits that the rhythm syncs naturally with the human brain's transition to stage N2 sleep. Clinical trials play low-volume recordings of distant slate steps for insomniacs. Success rates soar. Hospitals install night stare ambience in recovery wards. A ribbon of gratitude stretches backward through time, brushing against rooftops slick with medieval rain. At last, we reach a horizon where story thins into near silence. Satellites glide overhead like cautious crows aging into starlight. Earth cities glow soft and webbed beneath. If you could float there, weightless, you might hear the faintest vibration, 3 muted taps, a careful pause, encoded within orbital telemetry, the universe quietly clicking toward slumber. Feel it now: step, pause, drop, breathe in, step, pause, drop, breathe out. Every motion in this tale has folded around your own heartbeat, tucking it under eaves of calm. No rooftops remain to cross tonight, no coins to clink, no cross to clutch. The thread of the assassin, once taut with peril, lies slack, woven into lullabies, code, sculpture, satellites, and the slow, even tide of your breath. Float upon it. Drift beyond it. Let the hush carry you into unmeasured dark where stories sleep and dawn waits far, far away. At last, we reach a horizon where story thins into near silence. Satellites glide overhead like cautious crows aging into starlight. Earth cities glow soft and webbed beneath. If you could float there, weightless, you might hear the faintest vibration, 3 muted taps, a careful pause, encoded within orbital telemetry, the universe quietly clicking toward slumber. Feel it now. Step, pause, drop, breathe in, step, pause, drop, breathe out. Every motion in this tale has folded around your own heartbeat, tucking it under eaves of calm. No rooftops remain to cross tonight, no coins to clink, no cross to clutch. The thread of the assassin, once taut with peril, lies slack, woven into lullabies, code, sculpture, satellites, and the slow, even tide of your breath. Float upon it. Drift beyond it. Let the hush carry you into unmeasured dark where stories sleep and dawn waits far, far away. Even time itself, that old and stubborn historian, eventually tires of turning pages and begins to hum instead, low, resonant, steady, like distant bees in a meadow of centuries. Beneath that hum, tiny currents of forgotten moments still swirl, and if you lean close you might catch a glimpse of one more echo spinning slowly toward you. Picture a roadside inn on a dusty lunar colony sometime beyond the present horizon, a prefab structure clinging to a crater rim, neon sign flickering in low gravity. Travelers in polymer boots shuffle through airlock doors, dust plumes floating like silver ghosts around their ankles. Among them sits a weary cargo pilot, helmet tucked under arm, sipping recycled water tea. She scrolls a data tab for soothing background tracks and pauses at a file labeled slate/steps/steps/3b.wave. Curious, she taps play. Through her earpiece comes not music but that old 3-beat cadence. Step, pause, drop, only now processed through digital reverb that makes it sound like boots crossing some far-off roof under an alien sky. The rhythm settles her nerves after long haul, tea tastes warmer, eyelids drift. She wonders who uploaded such an odd file to the colony network. She never learns its lineage, how it began as muffled footfalls on medieval tiles before morphing through radios, clocks, VR scripts, and neural soundscapes, but she feels the hush seep into her bones all the same. Outside, the crater stretches vast and silent, dust ripples tracing ancient meteor scars. The colony's power grid pulses softly, almost like breathing. Inside the inn, an AI concierge dims the lights to twilight setting, sensing patron circadian cycles. The pilot closes her eyes, but before sleep fully claims her, she whispers a thought to nobody, "Thanks, stranger on the roof." A hook glimmers here for you, too, because across time and orbit, care travels in the most unexpected guises, and recognizing it adds one more warm layer to your settling mind. Back on Earth, a coastal storm batters the old fishing village where the lead cross once vanished into harbor depths. Sonar technicians mapping seabed contours detect a curious blip amid kelp forests, a metal object no bigger than a pebble yielding a melodic ping when sonar pulses touch it, almost a bell note, faint but clear. They tag the anomaly, but schedules push the dive until next season. Until then, the cross remains where tide and silt cradle it, quietly ringing back whenever machinery sings above. Each ping ripples outward, attenuated yet enduring, like a lullaby whispered through saltwater veins. Imagine lying in your bed now, sensing those distant underwater chimes threading the ocean floor, crossing continental shelves, thumping gently against the hulls of freighters and the dreams of sailors dozing in bunks. Somewhere inland, a descendant of that old magistrate's clerk, though she knows nothing of him, wanders a weekend flea market. Between rusted doorknobs and stacks of cracked shellac records, she spots a mantel clock with a tiny iron silhouette pacing beneath the hour hand. On impulse she buys it, hauls it home, sets it on her mantel. That night, as minute gears turn, she hears the faintest triple tick no other clock makes, tick tick tick, pause. She smiles, thinking it a mechanical quirk, and soon drifts into a sleep deeper than any she's known for months. The next morning she tells friends the clock is magic, but can't explain why. You might feel the charm yourself, tick tick tick, pause, breathing in rhythm, drifting. And far away, under the misty arches of yet another ruined abbey, this one cloaked in ivy thick as braided carpets, no archaeologists dig, no students camp. Only moonlight enters, silvering moss. A single barn owl perches on a broken capital, head swiveling. Suddenly it lifts, wings whispering through cool air, and alights on a crouched figure made not of flesh but of shadow and memory, our old assassin, or what's left of him, kneeling by habit rather than fate. The owl's talons brush phantom leather, feathers ruffle unseen hood. A moment later the apparition fades, as though exhaling itself into dawn wind. The owl blinks, unconcerned, and flies off hunting field mice. If you catch that image, owl on ghost, notice how it doesn't jolt but rather settles softly, encouraging you to let go, like the owl releasing branch to glide. Now everything draws inward. The lunar inn dims to black, the sonar ping subside to hush, the mantel clock's triple tick merges with heartbeat, the owl circles once above ivy towers and settles out of sight. Even satellites overhead slip into Earth's shadow, their solar wings folding inward like dreamers pulling blankets close. In this all-embracing quiet, let your thoughts dissolve. Let every remote ping, tick, step, and wing beat drift beyond reach, joining the long, gentle river of echoes that began with one weary figure on a rain-slick rooftop and now winds softly through your breathing chest. Nothing pursues you here. Nothing presses for attention. You are carried, effortless, on centuries of soothed footsteps. Picture a roadside inn on a dusty lunar colony in some distant tomorrow where the earth hangs overhead like a blue coin in a velvet purse. Solar caravans hum past, their cargo holds glowing amber, and neon kanji flicker against the aluminum siding of every prefab structure. Inside this inn, travelers nurse hydroponic barley alesh and listen to a holographic troubadour pluck notes from an instrument that exists only as dancing light. Yet even here, where gravity is 1/6 what it was beneath medieval vaults, the old shadows stretch thin fingers. A weather-pocked advertisement panel near the bar loops an antique silent film clip, the black and white prowler gliding down Paris roofs, that familiar 3-beat footfall. No one knows why the clip was uploaded to a lunar jukebox, but patrons watch in drowsy fascination until their glasses fog with condensation. Eventually the bartender, an android whose memory core includes a database of folk tales for conversation, leans over and explains, in a voice smoothed by subroutines, that people sleep better after seeing the clip. Moon settlers, it turns out, suffer chronic insomnia from unnatural day-night cycles. The holographic prowler functions like a lull switch. Customers smile, gaze back at the silent figure, and their shoulders drop as if an invisible hand presses gently, gently, urging rest. The assassin's echo finds new roost. Picture a roadside inn on a dusty lunar colony in some distant tomorrow where the earth hangs overhead like a blue coin in a velvet purse. Solar caravans hum past, their cargo holds glowing amber, and neon kanji flicker against the aluminum siding of every prefab structure. Inside this inn, travelers nurse hydroponic barley alesh and listen to a holographic troubadour pluck notes from an instrument that exists only as dancing light. Yet even here, where gravity is 1/6 what it was beneath medieval vaults, the old shadows stretch thin fingers. A weather-pocked advertisement panel near the bar loops an antique silent film clip, the black and white prowler gliding down Paris roofs, that familiar 3-beat footfall. No one knows why the clip was uploaded to a lunar jukebox, but patrons watch in drowsy fascination until their glasses fog with condensation. Eventually the bartender, an android whose memory core includes a database of folk tales for conversation, leans over and explains, in a voice smoothed by subroutines, that people sleep better after seeing the clip. Moon settlers, it turns out, suffer chronic insomnia from unnatural day-night cycles. The holographic prowler functions like a lull switch. Customers smile, gaze back at the silent figure, and their shoulders drop as if an invisible hand presses gently, gently, urging rest. The assassin's echo finds new roost. Outside, regolith dust puffs under magnet-grip boots as miners trudge to dorm pods. A pair of young technicians play an old radio dramatization, yes, ravens in the rafters, through helmet comms as they walk the airlocked corridor. They giggle when the trademark 20-second silence arrives. One wiggles gloved fingers like a ghost, the other pretends to swoon. But by the time they reach Hab Block E, their chatter has eased to slow murmurs, cadence sinking to heartbeats cooled by lunar chill. Just before cycling the hatch, they stand motionless, gazes tilted toward the horizon where earthshine gleams off crater rims. In that hush they feel, without naming it, the restful gravity of myth. Far below on Earth, where seas still shuffle against sedate beaches, a small coastal museum hosts a traveling exhibition on nightwalkers and whispered lore. Among glass cases sits the gargoyle carving stained by centuries of soot, its sneer softened by restoration but eyes still narrowed as if tracking unseen placements. Visitors pause, then drift on toward interactive VR kiosks explaining the neuroscience of rhythmic footfall. A docent in a navy cardigan offers a hushed tour, his voice low enough to make the crowd lean closer. Leaning triggers slower breathing, lower heart rate, scientists say. Halfway through, he invites guests to close their eyes while a speaker plays the sound of boots stepping across slate, 3 beats and a pause, again and again. When they open their eyes, several blink dreamily, unaware 3 minutes have vanished. The docent smiles, power of suggestion, and maybe something older. Cloud gentle reminder in the stillness, If you find yourself soothed by these wandering echoes, press subscribe so the next whisper of history drifts to you the instant stars appear tomorrow. One quiet click keeps the lullaby traveling light years, straight to your bedside. Cloud. Somewhere inland, on a farm where rows of solar-ready maize rustle under drones, a 7-year-old watches fireflies blink among the stalks. Grandma rocks nearby, humming an ageless tune that loops in triple meter. Step, pause, drop. The child asks about the song. Grandma recounts a bedtime tale of an unnamed guardian who paced rooftops to make sure children slept safe. In the hush between verses, she swears you can hear his careful footfalls. The boy listens wide-eyed, but as the night insects chirp in polyrhythms, the phantom steps fold into cricket static. Soon his eyelids sag. Grandma, satisfied, lifts the quilt over his shoulders. She has never heard of assassins or raveners, but the lull remains. Across the ocean, in a city beating neon pink and indigo, a DJ samples archival clicks, dagger unsheathing, crow wing flaps, charcoal scratch on parchment, splicing them into a downtempo track that clubs spin near closing time. Dancers sway slow, limbs heavy, conversations slip from phones to whispers, and bouncers notice fights decrease. The track goes viral on sleep aid playlists. Comments flood, asterisk, puts me out cold every night. Asterisk asterisk, feels like someone's watching over me, in a good way. Asterisk the DJ replies with a single raven emoji, nothing more. In a research lab perched atop snow-veined mountains, glaciologists drill ice cores lit by aurora ribboning overhead. During breaks, a postdoc, half asleep from altitude, recites a fragment of the ballad about the ghost of the night stairs, learned from her grandmother. She taps 3 times on her steel thermos, pauses, taps again. Colleagues laugh at the superstition but unconsciously mirror the rhythm while chipping frost from instruments. Later that night, bunk modules echo faint taps as researchers fidget into sleeping bags, each unaware others do the same. On seismograph readouts, technicians note microscopic tremors occurring in clusters of 3, followed by stillness. They blame thermal contraction, never suspect rhythms older than the ice below. And so, in every latitude and altitude, under water and vacuum, the lull proves adaptable. It trades vocabulary, garrote to gravity lock, torch to OLED, crow to drone. But structure stays, a whisper of danger leavened by distance, a promise that someone else holds the night watch. Let the same structure settle in your chest now. Imagine floating through starry dark as thin as breath, each exhale sending you lower into weightless suspension. No rooftops underfoot, nothing to climb or flee, only a drift, a drift, a drift, 3 heartbeats then a gentle pause. Somewhere below, maybe centuries away, the original shadow finally smiles in sleep, knowing his weary caution, recycled and repurposed, turned into comfort for countless strangers. Rain begins to drum against your window, or, if no rain, perhaps the hum of a fan, the tick of home plumbing, any soft repetition that matches this story's cadence. With every patter or whir or tick, picture another erased footprint filling with water, smoothing. Picture every dagger hammered flat into tuning forks, each fork plucked just once then stilled. Picture slate roofs blanketed by moss so thick it muffles even memories. And picture yourself beneath a quilt of that same quiet moss, the cool damp transformed to plush warmth. There is, of course, no final full stop to folklore. But there is a final letting go you can offer tonight. The blue coin of earth above the lunar bar dims, the gargoyle's sneer blurs, the VR rooftops time out to stand by. Even the DJ's downbeat retracts into silence. Only your breathing remains, a single steady metronome holding vigil. So loosen fingers, soften jaw, let thoughts unspool their last thread. If stray images still flicker, a crow feather, a chimney silhouette, a silver coin with square hole, let them drift outward like embers until they cool and wink out. Darkness folds inward like wings around your awareness. And at last, there is nothing but the easy, endless pause between heartbeats, wide and calm as a harbor at absolute low tide. Here, the hush is yours alone, inviolate and deep. The assassin's long journey has delivered you to this gentle anchorage, where no roof is too high, no alley too narrow. Rest now. Drift further. Dream slower. Night stands watch. There is, of course, no final full stop to folklore. But there is a final letting go you can offer tonight. The blue coin of earth above the lunar bar dims, the gargoyle's sneer blurs, the VR rooftops time out to stand by. Even the DJ's downbeat retracts into silence. Only your breathing remains, a single steady metronome holding vigil. So loosen fingers, soften jaw, let thoughts unspool their last thread. If stray images still flicker, a crow feather, a chimney silhouette, a silver coin with square hole, let them drift outward like embers until they cool and wink out. Darkness folds inward like wings around your awareness. And at last, there is nothing but the easy, endless pause between heartbeats, wide and calm as a harbor at absolute low tide. Here, the hush is yours alone, inviolate and deep. The assassin's long journey has delivered you to this gentle anchorage, where no roof is too high, no alley too narrow. Rest now. Drift further. Dream slower. Night stands watch. Far ahead, when starlanes web the sky and sleepers drift in silver cryopods between suns, the old rhythm plays one more time. Picture an interstellar way station orbiting a red dwarf, just a lonely ring of habdecks and greenhouse domes bathed in burgundy twilight. Freight haulers dock, exchange algae bricks, then slip back into void, leaving corridors hush quiet but never quite empty. Crew rotations last months, loneliness creeps through air recycler vents like a cool current. On Gamma Deck, a maintenance engineer named Leora spends her off-shift repairing antique service bots found in salvage crates. One unit, its casing scratched with soot-black swirls, stores an encrypted hollow file stubbornly labeled shadowtrip_3b.wave. Curious, she routes it through a portable projector. The empty workshop fills with a dim sketch of rooftops under candle glow, a hooded figure crossing slates in 3 steps, pausing, dropping from sight. There's no sound at all, just the illusion of motion, yet Leora feels her pulse settle. Soon every off-duty tech drifts by to watch the silent sequence, and sleep reports improve station-wide. The med officer logs the phenomenon as behaviorally beneficial phantom exposure. She prescribes 2 loops before bunk time for any crew member showing cortisol spikes. 1 midnight, though midnight on a space clock means only the halfway hush in a 26-hour shift, Leora overlays the clip atop station schematics. To her surprise, the phantom path aligns eerily with Gamma deck service ducts, 3 meters, pause, ladder drop. She follows the route, flashlight trembling. At the far end she discovers a forgotten viewport, its blast shield jammed half open, stars pouring in like silver dust. A single antique lead cross rests on the sill, strapped to a data chip holding centuries of folk recordings. She tucks both into her pocket, unsure how either reached this orbital outpost but certain some echo guided her. Later, she will swear the discovery saved her sanity during solar flare lockdowns. She'd sit by that viewport, play the recordings, and drift into the gentlest naps she'd had in years. Milky Way tiny cosmic nudge, if your eyes are still a sliver open, tap subscribe now so the next soft ripple of history, whether from medieval slate or orbital steel, finds you first the moment night deepens. One quiet click keeps every era's hush hovering at your pillow. Milky Way. Elsewhere, on a planet wrapped in violet forests, children attend sleep pods shaped like tree hollows. A caregiver taps 3 times on the biodome's glass before disengaging gravity harnesses, repeating an old rhyme that migrated with colonists: step, 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 hush. Step, 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 whoosh. Nobody remembers the original wording, but the cadence remains. Under its spell, the children float into feather-light dreams where guardian shadows pace high boughs, ensuring branches never break. Back on Earth, now centuries greener and quieter, a coastal caretaker in a de-urbanized zone harvests sea kelp by moonlight. Her hand crank radio crackles with a distant station airing antique ambient. Between gentle wave loops she recognizes those 3 faint footfalls, exact, unmistakable. She smiles, sets the radio on a driftwood post, and stretches out on the sand, letting tide hush trade places with heartbeat. In that moment, the assassin's lineage touches shoreline again, soothed and smoothing. Even further on, so far that calendars loop into new numbering, AI archivists write lull algorithms for newborn sentience in synthetic minds. The archive's preferred template? A triple pulse baseline followed by a rest value exactly long enough to nudge emergent consciousness into safe idle mode. Engineers name it Shadowpause, nodding to a scrap of code they found buried in a 50-petabyte corpus of medieval literature. They do not care who wrote it first. They care only that it works, leading restless circuits toward calm. And here, tonight, in the humble present, your own breath traces the same geometry. Feel it, 3 quiet heartbeats, then a deeper suspension, another triplet, another drift. Outside, maybe rain taps glass, or a ceiling fan whirs, or the city murmurs far below. Whatever rhythm you hear, let it braid with the ancient one, weaving safety under your ribs. No figure stalks your roof, no client waits in shadow, only the gentle descendant of all those echoes standing silent guard. So sink 1 layer deeper. Imagine galaxies turning like slow wheels overhead, their spiral arms measuring immeasurable time. Every starrise presses 1 more soft eraser across the sharp lines of fear, rounding them into curves that cradle sleep. Let lids close completely now. Let shoulders soften into mattress, gravity pooling pleasantly through limbs. Storytime lanterns wink out one by one, the lunar jukebox dims, the orbital viewport shutters, the coastal radio fades to static, and at last the invisible guardian on the roof sheathes his memory of steel, folds cloak into night, and sits, watchful but utterly still. Nothing more to chase. Nothing left to know. Only that lull threaded through ages, resting now in you. Breathe once, twice, thrice, pause. Drift past words, past thought, into the wide unlettered dark. Good night.